creativity, whatever you have at your disposal to push similar to the ones that are in your industry, as opposed to, no, I'm gonna let people find my restaurant. I'm not gonna spend the money to promote my restaurant,
Yeah.
my
I think
podcast, my blog, my app, whatever.
it was
Yeah.
a few things out there. Number one, that there got to be backwards movement in marketing and advertising during the pandemic, for one thing. That I think just was a domino effect. Just everybody saw one other person doing it. But beyond that, before that, and everything else like that, I think it was, again, just this is what somebody else is doing, so we're going to try it with the social media stuff and the influencers and the brand ambassadors. And I think they, thought that they could get away with it cheaper and maybe be just as more effective. And it became copycat syndrome, where everybody was, okay, well, they made success selling their Tide this way, so let's go with our pork chops that way. And it was a lot of and I think it was a lot of copycat stuff, seriously, to a certain extent. And they thought that was the new wave, and it's still out there. But then what happened was is that corporately, with maybe funds tight or budgets tight, especially during the pandemic, they just jumped full on board of it and just abandoned traditional marketing.
I'm with
Yeah.
you on that.
I think it was
Go
like
ahead.
a combination of things. Like I think it's a combination of people inserting their ego into the business. Like I am the business, and like so ego kind of takes over. And number two, I think it's a small factor of taking your clients, customers, etc. for granted. And C, I think it's just a little bit of I don't know, like she's like the pandemic, like you didn't have to promote yourself as much during the pandemic because people did not have anything else to do. So I think like the pandemic, even like with the restaurant industry, like what we were talking about last week, like certain pandemic rules have just kind of become a part of post-pandemic lifestyle, where it's like, all right, I don't have to do as much because people are gonna find me. Like, but I think that's also just like taking your fan base, your client base, your customer base for granted.
One thousand
So when
percent.
I think about it, Nick, honestly, I think for me the conversation is a little bit different in terms of just promoting just to promote, right? So, instead of just sniping and flyers everywhere, and I'm over here doing this and doing that, da 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 da. Am I focused on my customer base or my fan, or I call them family, right? So, like when I look at like I mess around with podcasts a little bit, right? So, in that relationship space, I look at tonight's conversation. They're out. So when dude first started doing them, I know he came to Chicago like in July or June or something like that, and they had like 200 people on the north side, right? He came back this time. They did five, like in October. They did five sold out shows at the Harold Washington Cultural Center, right? Five sold out shows in one weekend. What was the difference? They started focusing on, like, he promotes and uses social media as a leverage, but he also connects, and that's what people keep missing. You have to connect with people. You gotta be focused on that connection with your audience. You gotta foster that connection, and then word of mouth will never fail, right? So if people are spreading the word for you and you leveraging your fan base as your street team, then that's a way easier sell than me out there talking about how good and how dope I am. The other thing that I see the industry starting to do, and like these podcasters in particular, they're doing the same thing that musicians did years ago, which is they're doing the meet and greets, they're doing the photos. They got people talking about my man Trill out of H Town from Crew Season. Man, he got these females. This is a married man. He got these females fawning over him, talking about him like crazy. The dude moves around like he a rapper. And you gotta, my point is, I guess, you gotta foster that connection with people and build your audience and look at it as a one-to-one relationship every time. That's my opinion.
On
So
purpose too.
yeah, so this interesting, Nick. I think it ties back to what Third was saying, but I don't think it's age specific. I think a lot of people are just ignorant to how marketing and branding work in businesses in general, specifically for restaurants. They built a lot of their businesses on people just walk-ins. You see that a lot with the barbershops, the salons as well, and I think that they equate that with sustainability or word of mouth. And there is some significance to word of mouth, but you have to mirror word of mouth a lot of times with paid acquisition and a strategy. So a lot of individuals, when they have these businesses, they really don't understand the systems. There are systems to actually making these things work, and the systems is what actually makes the thing scale. And it gets very specific restaurants. But I see this happen in tech as well. I see a lot of startups because it became very famous. No marketing, no marketing. Don't spend any. Or you raise $1 million, figure out a way to hack the internet to make people actually download your app. You better not spend 100 grand on a party or on some event to actually get the word out there. So it happens in other industries. I don't think it may be comparable because where you don't market in tech and you get people to know about your platform, you could just go and raise another 50 million. Or you don't market in the restaurant business, and that lasts for about a week, you can probably go out of business. So it just it's different results of doing so. But I think it ties to a form of ignorance of how actual business work from end to end. I'm going on mute.
I agree. Yeah, it's like an advertiser became corny at some point, right? And I
That's
mean,
true.
and that was marketing's fault, right? Like, so that was something that I pushed as a marketer for a while, right? It was kind of like running an ad telling people how great you are is kind of whack. What you need to do is kind of build that, tell that story, get your fan base, get your consumers, get your customer base to tell people how great you are. That's more marketing, right? That's, accentuate the positives of what you do, but an ad became corny at some point.
You know,
But it translated in a way that it shouldn't have, because
I think it.
like,
I
okay,
think it did.
the Drake Surprise album, right? Like the Drake Surprise album works, the Beyonce Surprise album works, but like, if anybody could pull off a surprise, like Apple could drop a phone tonight and it still sell because it's Apple. It's a new phone. We're all gonna go get it to a certain degree. We like new shit, and they never do it. When they advertise the new iPhone 15, there's commercials, there's specials, there's sales, there's the whole nine. But how the hell did the rest of us think that we were Apple?
Yo, Nick, here's what happened though, and I think it's a good thing, which is like, which is marketing. People are savvy to marketing. Marketing, it is corny now though. Like, put it like this: if you hand me a flyer in 2023 or a business card, it's not. It doesn't connect the same way it did because the mystique about having a business card is gone. Like, I think we forget that life changes so fast. Like, there's so many different cycles of what we go through. And so what I think is the average consumer now is way smarter and way more hip than what it used to be. So they understand the products that are the products. So they understand they don't have to. They understand what they get when they get Coca-Cola. They understand Apple and the marketing that they get, what they get. The other brands have to influence. So I say this: spokesmanship is dead. Spokesmanship does no longer work. No one's going to, everybody, anything that somebody sees you do online, if they see you do it, the first thing they're going to say is you're paid to do this. You got paid, somebody paid you money. If you talk about anything, any product that exists, someone says, oh, how much they cut you a check for? Even when I say things online, right? I might like Drake. They'll be like, is Drake are you on Drake's payroll? I'm like, yo, people are automatically assuming that anything that you say online or you advocate for something, that you're being paid to do so. So influence is really what you got to do, which is really you have to kind of subliminally get people to buy into what you're doing by your brand, by your personal brand, rather than just saying, "Hey, I'm so and so. I think this is the best shoe that you should possibly wear, and I say you go out and get it right now." No one's gonna go buy that shit. But if they see you photographed at a really great event, they see you courtside at the game, and you got them shoes on, that's what people want because they think your personal decision to buy that without promoting it is why you have those shoes, and now they want your personal taste. They want what you have. That's why.
Oh,
That's the more important part, in my opinion, is influence over spokesmanship.